Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Joram Barrez, and together with my co-host Valentin Zickner, we're going to talk today about the real-life application of artificial intelligence within the context of Flowable. Now, we know that there are concurrent sessions going on, which are super interesting, so we're very honored that you've chosen to watch this one live. Don't worry, all of the sessions are recorded, so you can watch them later at your own pace whenever you like it. Also, we have Christopher sitting in the background who is gathering all of the questions you have during this session. So you should be seeing a Q&A window in front of you. Use that window as much as you want to ask all the questions and give Christopher lots of work. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at AI, and we're going to have a look at the last year, because that's really when things kickstarted. Now, this is in fact our third webinar. We did the webinar, me and Valentin, then Micha Tusha did the webinar, and this is our third session on artificial intelligence. So we're going to reference that sessions once in a while to show you the journey that we've been taking, in the last year, and show you how we are tackling the problem or the kind of things that you can do with artificial intelligence. Now, if you've watched those sessions, you'll know that we focused on the runtime there, and we talk about that a bit later. But today we're going to swing the other side. We're going to have a look at how can we use artificial intelligence to enhance the modeling experience. So about a year ago, 30 November, almost a year ago, we had the launch of ChatGPT by OpenAI, and this launched or relaunched, according to some, the excitement around artificial intelligence. If I look at my own home, my two kids, aged 11 and 13, they use ChatGPT to do their homework once in a while, not because they want to cheat, but their teacher has actually instructed them and learned them how to use ChatGPT. So this thing is here to stay for sure. Now, ChatGPT is a specific sort of AI. It is a generative AI using a large language model, or LLM. Now, if you don't know what that is, we did a long explanation on that in our first webinar, so go and check that out if you want. But the short gist of it is that you've got a huge model of words or part of words that are connected with links between each other that shows or has some value indicating how likely it is that a certain word follows after the other. So when you're having a conversation with these kind of AIs, the algorithm is selecting the next word based on some randomness and then making something that sounds very close to what a human might say. Now, these algorithms aren't limited to text only. It can be applied to video, to audio, sound effects, to summaries in a Word document, but also to images. And by the way, all of the images that we're showing today in this presentation have been generated using artificial intelligence, in this case with DALL-E 3 from OpenAI. Now, it's important to remember that many of these algorithms, they are quite old, in relatively spoken in computer terminology. They have been around since the 60s. The mathematics is still the same. But what did change over the last decade, I would say, is that we've now got the availability of cloud accessible arrays of huge kind of GPU machines that are really good at doing that mathematics. Now, after ChatGPT launched, there, of course, as with any new technology, were a lot of new competitors, new products, new ideas. For example, on the text kind of area, we had Bard from Google, we had Llama from Meta, we had Tongqi Changwen from Alibaba. On the image side, we had Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, which we're using in this presentation. We had audio, video, sound effects, summaries of meetings. We had code helpers. If you're a developer, you can now use GitHub Copilot. You can use Amazon Code Whisperer. Anyway, the point is there is this explosion of services, of products, of interest around artificial intelligence. But it isn't only limited to products and competitors. The discussions and debates also happened and happen on many other levels. For example, the safeguards. You remember probably in the first weeks or months of ChatGPT that you could have a conversation with ChatGPT and it could get into a dangerous area, or maybe a wrong kind of conversation, and wrong in the kind of factual sense of things, or also in the ethically or morally kind of sense of things. Now, they've fixed many of those things, but the debate is still out whether you can truly fix or patch this behavior. The second thing is data privacy. is the model that these AIs are trained off, is it retrained on new data that we're inputting? And if I'm an employee of a company with some sensitive data, how can I be sure that my contents isn't uploaded to other people, that it is, when it's training on that it's not reusing that data? And some companies have even gone as far as simply banning AI to avoid any leakage. Now, there are solutions for that too. You can have a private ChatGPT instance on Azure services, but it's something to keep in mind. There's, of course, the copyright and intellectual property kind of angle to it. Is the AI trained on material that it had copyright to? And the material that's being generated, do you have the copyright to it automatically? Or does something else have the copyright? Or what does copyright even mean in this context? And there are pending lawsuits going on right now that surely will influence this debate very soon. And of course, as always, the legal side lags behind the technology. And right now, many governments all across the globe, and I put a few recent articles there, they are racing to find a balance between innovation on the one hand and safeguarding and making sure their citizens are safe. So surely things are going to change there, pretty much any week. Now, there was an interesting report by Gartner at the end of August, where basically they looked at the market of AI and generative AI in particular, and they used their famous hype cycle and they put, they said this is where it fits. Now, to my surprise, or maybe actually not, they put generative AI on the peak of inflated expectations, which means, according to them, that the transformational benefits are going to come in 2 to 5 years, but not today. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing. It simply means that the amount of excitement that there is for generative AI doesn't really match the amount of real-life use cases. And this is a normal thing in any kind of new technology or any kind of hyped technology. Before you come to the real valuable kind of things you can do with it, you go to this true of delusionment. And that's right now, according to Gartner at least, where we are. Now, not only to Gartner, but it kind of matches our experience. I mean, this is, as we said, our third session on artificial intelligence. In our first session of June, we looked at generative AI, ChatGPT in particular. We showed some demos around content generation, around sentiment analysis, around how to build models that can help you write expressions and scripts and whatnot. And for us, the key takeaway at that point was that, well, that's already possible with Flowable. Integrating with any AI to any kind of API is already possible. And this is a very natural thing for Flowable and for any AI to be in, because we're in this high-level platform with a bird's eye view on things. So integrating AI just makes sense. But our research also showed that to make sense, to build real value, it's just not enough to add one AI to your platform, to your product. That's just going to give you marginal gains. The real value is if you can create a pipeline of different AI services and that way kind of make something that has real value. And a pipeline fits nicely into our case and our process concepts, obviously. Now, the key takeaway that I do want to stress again is that if you think about where does AI bring the most value, it is in the runtime. Imagine this little process that we also showcased already a few times. Here we're gathering data for a certain user, we're gathering the age, the gender, some information about education, all kind of personal information. And we're using ChatGPT to generate a first suggestion of an email that we can send to this user. There's a little loop there at the bottom that you can reiterate with things you don't like, but basically you refine this email until you're happy, and then you send it off. And the scale factor here comes into play. Of course, if you do it just once, there isn't really value in using that. But imagine this process being executed hundreds of times. Well, the time you shave off by not having to start an email from scratch or have at least some inspiration, that really pays off in the long term. In July, we had our second webinar, and we kind of shifted our attention to another kind of AI, not generative AI, but the assistive and predictive AI. Now, without going into too much details, again, if you'd like to see that again, you can register and watch it at your own pace. But the crucial point here is that data plays a crucial role. The size of data, you need a lot of data to build a custom model. You need a good distribution. I mean, if you're only executing the same part in your process all the time, that's not really learning anything. And the data quality needs to be very high. Again, the value here, for example, if you have an assistive AI that helps you filling in forms based on old kind of forms you filled in, that really is the scale factor coming into play if you do this 100,000 and 100,000 of time. Again, the runtime being the core to all of this. Now
for this FlowFest, actually, our first idea was that we leverage existing AIs and just call them with Flowable with the service registry.
That would be boring.
Yeah, exactly. You're saying it. That is really boring, since we already have shown you how you can do that, how you can leverage one AI. And in the same way, actually, you can also go ahead and call out to other AIs. And that is the reason why we decided for FlowFest that we are going to tackle this time the modeling part. So let's look into that. We actually did do something in that direction already for the first webinar in June.
Yeah.
So that we used GPT 3.5,
Yep.
and I think you even tried to...
I tried it on GPT-4, and the results are actually way better. I mean, the results you get back are more like the BPMN you would expect.
Yeah.
It still isn't, perfect, but at least, there's huge leaps, which, in the 6 months since we've tried it, is huge. But anyway, let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
So there was a slide here, but we have some technical issues, right?
Yeah. Actually, we just go to the demo, and we tried it out just before the call.
Our last hour people on the call has been horrendous. Because ChatGPT is out. This hasn't happened since, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we see it actually here since it hasn't happened, but I mean, it's the worst timing we could ever have. But lucky me, I prepared a backup video, at least for the first few demos. So let's see if you prepared the backup video as well. So
normally we will be doing this live. You can trust us,
I mean, I would prefer live actually, since now I'm watching a video and you do basically the same.
So maybe you can, explain maybe more what we're doing here, because normally you would be typing.
Yeah, you see, I'm not used to actually watch videos. There's a pause button over here. So we have an input which actually describes okay, I shouldn't do that actually with a backup video. So we have an input here where we see actually now we describe a JSON document which describes us here in this case how a form is supposed to look like. So we describe a JSON definition of a form and say then to ChatGPT, please, based on this definition, create us an insurance claim form, which is then with typical fields, just as a starting point when we would like to do a demo.
And the reason why we're doing this simplified JSON is that the context window, when we made this movie last week, was limited to 4K, I think, for enterprise users, which we are. Basically, they changed that yesterday, right? They changed it to 128K due to some competition announcing this. So we could have simplified, improved this. But I mean, what happens now is we're generating the simplified JSON, and
which is good anyway that it is simplified, since at the end, I mean, it takes time to generate that. So as simple as that JSON structure is, the better it is. And we only need to have the limited capabilities in here. I mean, the form is complex from the fields, but probably we don't need all the position details and so on, which we normally have in there. And we can just compress it to a smaller format. Now, what we did do for the demo is we added that import to design button, which basically directly takes the last output from ChatGPT, asks us how we would like to name that process or form model. In this case here, it's a form. And then this is in the background adding it to our form. So here we have now our insurance claim form, which is a form containing all the different fields, so typical fields for the insurance. So we see here, for example, our type of incident and so on, and all those fields are generated. You can see fields are also next to each other, so we can have some kind of complex form even here with that simple.
And it's inspiration, right? I mean, you didn't say what you wanted on the form. You could have made this much more constrained by guiding the large language model into a certain context. The more context you give, the better it will try to do that. Now, this is a good inspiration if I don't know what I should put on the screen, right?
Yeah, and I mean, now you can either start modifying it, or we could even ask ChatGPT for improvements, what we would like to have different, and proceed basically with that. So let's watch the movie towards the end, but I don't think there is that much more here.
No.
So that it is basically.
Yeah, and actually the slide, because we were fixing these slides, 5 minutes before the call, so apologies for that, people. But anyway, who can guess that ChatGPT would be down if we have to do a ChatGPT demo? Now, this is technically interesting. I mean, technically, you're integrating with a REST API. You have our own little prompt with our simple form model, I would say, JSON language. But the value add compared to what we talked about before, the runtime value add is, of course, quite low. You're shaving off time, I don't know, half an hour maybe of one person, a handful of people modeling. So what's the real value there compared to the runtime? It's interesting. And we have some questions open now. And if you've got some ideas, of course, give Christopher some work by typing them into the Q&A chat. Is that we see the value in kickstarting ideas for sure, that's good anyway. But beyond that, is a chat-based approach, like a classic conversational UI where you're interacting with the AI, is that the right way to go? And we think there is a kind of a middle ground, a golden path in between, where you use a natural language capabilities with a sort of more fixed wizard-driven kind of thing. But anyway, that's what was one cool idea, Valentin. But we had some other cool ideas.
We had other cool ideas, and actually the next one is about seeing, hearing, and speaking. So ChatGPT actually announced that back in September for the US and last month for Europe. That's why we thought, maybe we should just take a picture of a process. And actually, I draw here a really nice process.
So normally, if ChatGPT would be working,
then we would take that process, and I have a phone here, and we could take a picture of it and try it out.
Valentin spends half a day making that work from his phone automatically into ChatGPT. It was really cool technically, but you know.
Not today, maybe next time. So we are going to talk more about the image input here, basically, to then show you the demo, not live today.
No. So, but the thing with the image input, it's a bit sad that they added image input, which it's super cool, as you will see, but there is no API for it yet. At the moment, you need to go through the conversational UI, which is why Valentin actually optimized it with his phone automatically, you know, some JavaScript hacking going around, and we would upload it, and that's it. But let's see, luckily we made a backup movie, and let's see how it looks like.
So it's not a whiteboard anymore, and probably it looks like I didn't included that movie in that position. So let's see. I think I can, there it is. Okay, I just sneaked it in. So in here, we are now adding a similar kind of JSON definition. This time it is optimized for processes. And we have here the picture of a different process than the one you have seen on the whiteboard, but that's the backup movie process. And we now say, please go ahead and use that. We also provided sample JSON documents and the definition of the
prompt is quite big, right? I mean, we're really scratching the limit of the prompt at that point.
Yeah, and at some point I tried to even increase the amount of information, and then things just got lost. So here it's really reliable, basically, that the JSON is in the correct format. So when ChatGPT outputs a JSON, you typically have a valid BPMN process which comes out. It's not always the right one, but most of the time it actually is. Here, since it's a backup movie, it's boring. I'm not even excited anymore to see what this comes out.
Normally there was this thing, is it going to generate something? It does look 99% of the time it does look right. I mean, but
now we are going to Flowable Design, where we can look at our process. So here we have the prepare task, and then the slides, doc, and code, which we have here an exclusive gateway. You see, we only prepared in this case the slides, since everything else are movies. So we took,
but it worked. I mean, the cool thing is it kind of understood what we wanted. We of course had to give it the big prompt with saying, how do we want to get this? And then we did the transformation to BPMN. Generating BPMN directly, that wasn't possible. I mean, generating directly BPMN XML from ChatGPT, we were seeing too many errors. And this actually simplifying the problem helps in generating proper BPMN. So that's a really good lesson there.
It also helps, since now that JSON document is way shorter than the XML for BPMN would be. So in this case, we just save time also in generating it. And we ensure basically that it is what we would like to see.
All right. So at that point, we were like impressed with the results because, you know, from a technological point of view, this is super cool, right? But thinking about the business value, thinking about what is now the real value add that we have. I mean, thinking about that runtime story you just gave, you know, with thousands, 100,000s of executions, that's where I really values. Now we came up with a cool idea. I mean, I'm biased that it's cool. We were wondering about, okay, what would be a cool use case about scanning something or taking a picture of something, and then do that en masse, do that, many times. And paper forms, I mean, I still get, I don't know how it is for you in Switzerland, but for me in Belgium, I still get a lot of paper forms that I have to fill in, send back, put a stamp on it,
Yeah, I mean, people still have different forms and basically just the paper. And when we have that forms and would like to digitalize all those forms, then we need to go ahead and do that either manually or we automate it. So the idea was actually that we are going to automate that. And here for this movie, we have a really interesting thing, since we just double the speed for ChatGPT is doing it. And I was doing the same thing, but therefore we just made it 5 times faster.
That's that little rectangle window you see.
Yeah, that one with the 5x on it. So let's just press start here, since it also takes a little bit until ChatGPT.
This is the forms again, right?
That's the form actually, which is a really long form. We can basically see it here at the top, all those different fields which are in there.
And that's a form from the DMV from,
I think, California. It's a release of liability or something like that.
It's a public form. And we tried it with many forms.
Yes.
And well, I'm not going to spoil it yet, but you can see if you're presenting it, you kind of know how this is going to end, right?
And you're actually seeing how fast in that corner I'm going to model here, that form here. And it's moving forward, adding field over field, and ChatGPT in the meantime is typing as well. Actually, ChatGPT, that was at the time where I recorded it, it ran out of basically tokens, so the window size was too small, so I needed to press a button. And after that button, ChatGPT was as annoying as today, but I thought I'd still let it in there. It took really long until it continued. So you see, even in
which
double
they
speed,
claim they fixed yesterday. I mean, with the new token window, and maybe that's related to the auto today. But that's basically they say it's way faster with the new release. So we're going to retry it once it's up and running again.
Yeah, maybe that's a reason for another webinar on ChatGPT, which we can do then probably next year.
But basically, this form contains what, 50-ish, I remember, something fields like that, and varied in types, right? You got text fields, you got drop downs, you got whatever, kind of things.
It's mostly text fields, since for the paper form you cannot see drop downs. And here you actually see how ChatGPT is pausing for a few seconds. So that's the point which I mentioned before, where we are just stuck there, eye in the corner, and that's why you or how you see that the video is not stuck. Still continue.
But I mean, nobody. I mean, this is really 5 times speed is already way too fast, right? I mean, just imagine that the amount of time it takes.
Now ChatGPT is done while I'm still working, I think, in the corner. There you see I still changed some fields. And we see here the form which is generated. Obviously, that's not the perfect form which you would like to have. So it's the paper form as the paper form was.
But this saves you a ton of time, right? I mean, if you would have to build this yourself, just a skeleton already.
I mean, it's taking more than double the time. You can see that in the corner. I think at this point it was some kind of finished. It's close to be finished at least, but not completely. While here we even already looked at the form itself.
But with the amount of paper forms still going around, even if it's 2023 these days, there is value add to be had on a large scale, according to us. So definitely a cool feat. I was impressed by this, to be honest, and I'm a hard man to impress. Right? Can you do magic again with the slides?
Yeah, let's see.
All right. So I know that some people, you on the call, will be now shouting, Joram Valentin. This is just OCR, right? Optical character recognition. We had that for ages, right? And yes, we had that, but no, it's not the same. There is a big fundamental difference here, is that with these kind of AIs like ChatGPT, you are giving it context and you're giving it a prompt, and the prompt is constraining what you're actually going to generate. So if we give it more data, we didn't do it, but we explained like, oh, this is a DMV form, state of California, right? It would already have linked the right concepts together in its model, and the result would have been of higher quality as just scanning and something in. Or it could even go crazy and say, go wild and generate me some other fields which would make sense, right? So it really makes sense that it's beyond OCR.
We can basically combine the first demo video with the last demo video and have a combination.
And that's what's the thing I was saying, right? The pipeline idea is that it's just not enough to integrate one kind of call to an AI. To really make sense, build real value, you're going to need to have a pipeline of a couple of services that integrate with each other and enhance their results, right?
That makes sense.
I'm going to get my little clicker here. All right. So let's pivot to a completely different kind of topic. I mean, we've been talking now about the model generation, about taking a picture from the whiteboard here. And again, sorry that it's all been through movies. You can really trust us, Scout's honor, that this is all working for real. We had excited to be showing it, but yeah, it is what it is. The other demo that we prepared is something completely different. Is one of the things we've been adding to the new Flowable release, 3.15, in the sort of our winter release, is the dashboard feature.
That's basically what you worked on the last few months.
Been my life for the last couple of weeks. And, you know, other people too, obviously. But basically, these dashboards, the data is already in Flowable. If you're generating or executing, processes, cases, rules, and all the other models, you're generating lots of data. Data is the database, is an Elasticsearch. We already have query models, which you can use to build your custom queries. But in 3.15, we're going a step up. There is two things there. There is a custom query builder, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to demo this, but there's a shameless plug here to my next session.
Okay, so we are not talking in details about that. You have, I think, in 1 hour.
Yes, 1 hour or something. I don't have a clock here, but 1 hour something. I do a talk together with Philip on data, and there we're going to show all of this for real, you know, live and yeah, with the details around it. So suffice to say, we've got an advanced kind of query builder going on. We've got dashboards, dashboard components. That's all for the next session. But what you have is something that looks like this. Now, this is just a demo dashboard.
That's really cool.
Exactly. And we're going to play with that.
Charts and so on.
Everybody likes charts, of course.
Yeah.
And we're going to play with that in our next session. But you can also see on the screen, and you don't see the mouse pointer, but you see that there's a hovering going on right there, right?
Yeah, the mouse pointer is probably somewhere here.
Yes, exactly. But you also see there's an export button going on there. And that export button,
this one here, probably.
That export button is basically exporting the data, let's say the raw rows of tasks in this case, and it's exporting that to CSV, so you can import it into your favorite tool, which is obviously Excel, and do whatever you want with it.
But my favorite tool is not Excel.
Yeah, well,
it's ChatGPT.
Well, so that's the offer today. Anyway, so if you export that, it kind of looks like this. I mean, this has 30,000 something rows of task data. And the cool thing is that there is this plugin, this AI. It's not generative anymore. It's a very different kind of AI that is data analysis. So let's see how that looks like, Valentin.
So the favorite tool again is actually ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So what we have here, this is a prompt, and if you can pause us a bit, Valentin, I'm going to try to do this to the movie. So we have this data set, and we're giving it the prompt that we're giving here is it's a data set of tasks that are coming from the Flowable platform, which is a business automation platform, just to constrain the context.
Okay.
And then I'm saying, analyze the data, make some visualizations, 3 I'm asking here, and basically analyze it. Give me some insights into that data.
Okay, so now we need to upload and attach the file, which we have over here, tasks by definition.
That's the one that I exported.
Okay, that makes sense. And now it's uploading.
Yeah.
Now even the movie from ChatGPT is slow. Let's begin by...
Yeah, and I think we have to skip a bit here because it takes a long time. I mean, this takes... I think 5 minutes in total. And what it's doing right now, it is kind of brute forcing the data. It is trying to make sense of what did I upload, right? Within that context that I gave it. And what's happening here on the screen is actually describing my column values.
Okay, so those are basically the different fields which you have inside the Excel document, also with an interpretation what is probably in those.
Yeah, for example, it says, process ID is probably the process, the runtime kind of thing. The due date is there, the assignee is there, the time, the claim time, the start time, etc. So all the things that you have in Flowable data is there, and it kind of brute forced that.
So that is the content of our CSV document, plus the header basically, and now it's looking at the data actually.
Yeah, it's actually looking at the data now, and it's thinking about, okay, what makes sense. And this is the generative part, of course, right? It makes what does make sense within this context?
Task volume over time means how many tasks we have basically when, no?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, then task priority distribution is how high the priority is between the different tasks.
Exactly, and in Flowable we have priorities between 0 and 100. So let's see how the ChatGPT doesn't know. So let's see what it will do.
And assigning workload basically means how busy is which user, so who is the bottleneck then at the end. But probably that's going to tell us then later on as well. So now it's working again, it looks like. And
again, you could click this open and you would see some Python. Normally I would show you the Python then. It's trying a lot of permutations to trying to make sense of the data. It's also now describing like how it's interpreting that data.
Okay.
I mean, it's, for example, if you can pause for a sec here. Yeah. It is, for example, saying that there seems to be values for the priority. There's the third bullet point between 0 or between 10 and 100. Exactly.
So nothing is with priority 0.
Exactly. Which is classic.
But 100 is the most common priority level.
It seems so.
Everything is important.
That's any kind of corporation, right? So let's continue. Let's see what it does. So it also already highlighted that some person, Demetrius Little, is having more tasks than the other.
Yeah. Poor little guy.
Yep.
Okay, then task volume over time.
Now it's just repeating itself, and it's going to generate now the visualizations.
Okay, that's great. I like charts.
Everybody does.
Yeah. So those charts are now not the charts which we have had in Flowable.
Correct. But you can see how this fits into the dashboard story, right? Like you have your dashboard UI and you interacting with this ChatGPT or AI, and it's suggesting you things based on real data.
Okay, so here we have the first chart.
Yeah, this is a simple one. This is because
it's a simple one. So we have at the bottom the time here basically, and then to the top is the amount of tasks.
Yes. And if I would have been a smart man, I would have done this continuously, but I pressed the button 3 times, as you can see here.
So basically the blue line is creating and the yellow line is completing. Correct. So that's why the first one is really going up, since there you created all the tasks and then you started completing them.
But it also says here, I think second bullet point here is that there doesn't seem to be a correlation, and that's true, there's no correlation. But now the fact that there is no correlation is also interesting insight, right? The lack of something is also data.
That's also useful information here.
Exactly.
So that chart is boring since you only press the button 3 times, but it's still a nice chart and nice insight, especially for real life use cases. I mean, that's just a demo use case in here, but when you have real tasks which you've finished, I think that is a really good insight. Now this chart here gives us, I think, the priority on the x-axis,
correct,
and then the number of tasks with that priority on.
And you see here that there's a lot of 100, values.
Everything is important.
And if you just move a little bit further. I believe, if I remember correctly, that it's actually saying, it's actually saying there, you have better eyes than me.
Priority level 100 is the most common, suggesting that many tasks are considered top priority.
Which we already guessed, right?
And then I think the distribution could indicate that the priority setting might be skewed towards higher numbers, or it could reflect an actual business need where most tasks require attention.
We all know the truth, right? Everything's important, nothing is important. That's kind of where you get into. Anyway, let's see what it is, the third chart we asked. But again, you could see there is no API for this yet. This is also in beta, so you have to enable it specifically in your settings of ChatGPT. But you can see that with the REST API, how this nicely would fit into our dashboard UI.
Okay, so then we have the last chart. I think here we see again that poor little guy, which has a lot of tasks, since we have the users on the left-hand side, while then on the x-axis we have the amount of tasks probably.
Correct. The amount of tasks that this person has done within the time frame that we've gathered the data.
So basically here.
And if you look at the analysis.
There is a bottleneck. So one user, the Demetrius Little, is a poor little guy, and he has to do all the tasks.
And rightfully, the analysis was now made that this person is either, a very important figure in the company, or it's a bottleneck. And to me, it's one thing to generate these charts and to, what it did. But the other thing is that to kind of interpret it and then really know about what it does, that was to me mind-blowing. So
that's true.
We also had a second movie.
Let's go to the second movie. So here in the second movie, basically we have another data set as far as I recall. So let's get started with that one. And I guess I need to press the play button. So in here we have probably then another document which we are uploading with the information coming here.
Same story. I think we can skip a bit here, Valentin, because it's the same story, right? The cool thing is here that it's generating a fully different set of visualizations.
So here, let's just, I don't know where I need to skip, but that one probably might be fine.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, there we go. That's the first chart. So that's a more complex chart, actually. It doesn't look as simple as before. So we have on the x-axis the priority, and then it's the completion time of the task.
Correct. So basically this, and ChatGPT is also going, if you put it a bit further, is also going to say, I thought there was something here, right? I mean, it's actually a very smart thing to do, right? See if there's a correlation between how long does a task take versus the priority. That's actually something very smart, and maybe we're going to build it into the product because it's very cool thing to show. But it said, the demo data that we use now, that's something 50,000 rows, doesn't really show any correlation, which is also saying something.
So it's pretty much the priority doesn't matter. Correct. Everything is important, but the priority doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyway, if you continue a bit, here you go. Second chart is also quite interesting. This is the previous chart that we had with the kind of assignee with amount of tasks, but now kind of seeing, is there a correlation at the same time between the priority?
Okay, so the priority is basically the yellow lane which is going there, and the blue bars are then the
correct. And it is interpreting that. It is saying, I mean, again, you have young eyes, you can read what it says. It is interpreting that and actually making sense of what's there on the screen. I don't know if there's a correlation or not at this point.
The number of tasks varies significantly amongst assignees, with some having a much higher task load than others.
Anyway, they're cool. But it's a cool visualization that I did not think of when I saw my data set. So again, it is very useful to kind of kickstart the ideas.
Is there more coming actually?
I think there's one more
chart. Okay.
Again, we didn't prepare this.
That was the most boring chart.
This was the boring one, over time, because I generated the data in just very small amount of time. In the runtime system, this will be of course.
So at the x-axis date and then the amount of tasks, and you created first a lot and then you completed a lot, which makes sense.
Let's go back to the slides really quickly, looking at the time. And this is the last slide, right? Which is great. So I think the story you want to bring today, and apologies if it was a bit chaotic, because our last hour before the session was panic, total panic, let's say. But I hope at least you understood what we're trying to do here at Flowable. For us, it's really about real value. It's really about thinking what makes sense to integrate AI with and what doesn't. I mean, we could easily have slapped something in with a chat UI and it generates something, but it needs to bring real value to the table. And I think with the story we've done over the last 6 months, I'm hoping that you've now seen the kind of things that we're focusing on and the kind of things that, in our opinion, really are valuable, bring in real value, and are fun and cool to use. I mean, I was really impressed with that new features in ChatGPT and any other kind of AI, because in Flowable, one thing we never do is tie ourselves closely to one product, right? I mean, we will build a generic interface around the kind of hook points to AI and make sure that you can switch it to your favorite AI if it has the same capabilities.
That makes completely sense. So
anyway,
we're not bound to ChatGPT or even the OpenAI thing.
Correct. That being said, I hope that Christopher is ready to join the call, and I hope there are some questions we can answer. The easy ones for me and the difficult ones for Valentin.
That's not fair. Christopher, what do you have?
Hi. First of all, thanks for the talk.
No worries.
And we have a couple of questions, and we have like a couple of minutes left. So
cool.
First question: rather than just a form, can we create like bigger entities, like an app, a whole app from one prompt?
I mean, technically, of course, that's.
I guess that was an easy question when you asked that.
So go ahead. Easy question for you.
Easy question for me. Lucky me. So at the end, I mean, we can go ahead and generate multiple things and combine them together. And with that, we would have an app. I mean, you need to see that the context fits. You probably also need to have multiple descriptions. For doing that, and with that, I think it's definitely feasible. It might take a little bit longer to build an entire app, but that's certainly something where we probably could have a look at for.
Technically, there is no limit. Definitely now that the context window has been enlarged by default, that is feasible.
Yeah, we should have a chance to actually do it.
Good. Regarding ChatGPT and BPMN or CMMN models, like do you see a way to optimize existing models using ChatGPT or other AIs?
That's a question I kind of expected already, in the sense that it's one that everybody expects. Like you have this big model. Can you now say, fix this? I mean, it's most likely it's going to be able to fix or to detect modeling errors, like blame mistakes, right? But I doubt that you can just give it a model and say, make it better.
But could we combine it with analytics or something there? I mean, on your dashboard, you have a lot of data.
Yeah, with the runtime, you need runtime. If you could enhance it with runtime data, kind of hinting at this is where this is but yeah, again, you have the context window, so we need to think about how that would work. But if you feed it runtime data compared with your model, I could see how the data analysis part, I mean, not the ChatGPT generative part, that's not going to work because that's not generating about anything. But if you use the data analysis, the beta plugin, if you can combine that with model and uploads, then I see that, I think
probably, I mean, you could first use the data plugin to figure out bottlenecks, for example. We have seen that one person and then tell by getting the maybe more information about the task, even saying, optimize that specific task.
So that's a very cool idea for maybe webinar 4.
We are collecting ideas for that already.
Okay, cool. You imported a form with ChatGPT, especially compared to the manual input. What about error rates of the import compared? Like manual labor versus ChatGPT labor.
I mean, when I do it, obviously manually, there is no error since I probably take one from Flowable. So the error rate is probably higher, but I mean, for all the tests which we did, as long as ChatGPT generated something, we also were able to import it. So we haven't had any issues for the JSON documents which ChatGPT provided.
I think, well, we tried many forms, right? And one of the areas that it's seen at that point, because again, this changes every week, basically, right? You see leaps in the kind of capabilities every time you try it again. When we built our demo, there was one form and it had a lot of small text, like very small print.
True. And that just missed some fields sometimes.
Exactly. But I think that was more a problem of resolution of your picture that we took with the camera, rather than being something that it couldn't do, because text is actually the simplest, right? The OCR thing we already solved a long time ago.
And I mean, there you also need to see it's a basis where you are going to work on. It's not like once you scan that form that you can directly integrate it in the process and put it into production. I mean, you should spend a few minutes reviewing the form and optimizing also the form to make the user experience better than what you have had before.
The human factor, whatever you do with AI, I mean, if there's two key takeaways from this talk is that one, the runtime value, the value is in the runtime, right? The really scale factor. The second is that, there always will need to be the need for human factor. You can't just put things into production straight away from what the AI generated. That would just be insane. So at this point, at least, who knows whatever comes in the future. Anyway, good question. Thanks.
Okay. One or two are possible. You prompted for the dashboards twice, and you got totally different results. How can you try to ensure that you get basically you get what you want?
I mean, that is really the magic of the new industry that started with prompt engineering. I think a year ago that didn't exist, that title. It's very simple actually. The more context you give it, the more not better, but the more specific it will be.
I mean, when you ask it for which specific diagrams you would like to have, then you would also have those diagrams.
So I actually did that. So when I generated one of the kind of visualizations, I said the first one should be, I think it was the pie chart with distribution of, I don't know.
Okay, and for the second one, you just left it open,
probably. Yes, I think that was cooler, because I also really like the idea of these AIs giving me suggestions, giving me kind of inspiration.
I mean, honestly, when you just would like to have a chart based on your input knowledge, then you wouldn't need to have the AI. So
you can do that in Excel, right?
Or you are going to do that with the new dashboards.
Exactly. So I still really see AIs and like ChatGPT as kind of a tool in our tool set, similar for Copilot, similar for kind of if you're coding. It is to enhance your work. It is really to, and I think it's really good at showing you things that you might not have thought about. Like, for example, the second chart with the distribution of priorities versus completion time, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to see if priority has an influence on completion time.
I mean, a high priority, I would expect that it's also completed faster. I would expect, but you see,
maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's a harder work.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, that's exactly what these kind of things can analyze. And
I mean, it depends on how you're doing your priorities.
As always. Yeah,
makes sense.
Okay, thank you. As a last question, we couldn't see it properly with that you imported the model. Did you experience any kind of bottlenecks while importing a model via photo, where you needed to, for example, adjust the painting itself and your drawing skills?
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT was not doing what you expected to do?
I mean, sometimes we just took basically the input and said, yeah, it's slightly wrong since the picture didn't match exactly with the output which we got. Most of the time it actually worked fine. So
I think there the thing is that you prompted again. So it's again, it's a conversational kind of paradigm, right? So the moment you get your results, you say, well, I don't like this part. That goes into the context and it kind of, generates then other things based on that. And it kind of listens to that, right? I remember back in the beginning, like I drew something on a paper and my exclusive gateway looked not like an exclusive gateway, and it generated a parallel gateway. And I said, well, I really wanted to be a parallel gateway, and it did that, right? So it kind of changed that to that. So it is, I mean, when I say it's generating, that may be oversimplifying it for this presentation. There is way more to it, to that contextual kind of thing, and taking into account what I said and improving upon it. So I hope that answers the questions a bit.
Okay. Yeah, that was our last question. Our time is up for today.
Yeah.
Thank you once again. Thank you both for this.
Thank you.
For your insights and this talk.
Yep.
Thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah. And see you next time.
And have fun with the upcoming streams.
Oh yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.